Hi, I'm Brenda Viola with Lympha Press, and we're so glad you joined us for another inspiring interview on the Lipedema channel. Now, I have to tell you that the woman I'm about to interview, I love her already because, gosh, when I was going through a difficult time, she sent me a thank you note. Thank you for the roundtables that we do. Thank you for the interviews. Thank you for her Lympha Press. And so I'm so delighted to welcome Jenny Beaujean. Is that the correct
Yep,
pronunciation?
that absolutely works.
Jenny Beaujean, how in the world are you today?
I am fine. It's sunny. It's spring. Life is good.
And you're coming to us from Massachusetts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your journey, well, you have lymphedema. When did you
hmm
first notice that something was different about your body?
Oh gosh, I mean, I've always had large legs. It's always been the way of the world. It just never had anything defined. I just thought it was the way it was. My grandmother, one of my grandmothers, had the same legs, and so I just thought it was my lot in life, But definitely, junior high, high school was key, I think, to knowing that I was different from anybody else I knew, you know?
Oh, so what did you do about that? Now, at the time, and I recall back in the day, I couldn't Google what might
hmm
possibly be
No,
wrong with me. So did you manage it in any particular way, or
oh,
you just lived with it?
I just lived with it. It was just part of me and who I was. And I was very fortunate, even in my school years, I had good friends around me and, that were kind of different, I think, from the rest of the world. And it was never something anybody even asked me about. It was just part of who I was and me. I think the hardest thing and the most difficult thing, of course, would be finding pants that fit well.
Mhm.
As fashion changes over times, there were times it was easier and times it wasn't. But it was just part of me and just kind of lived my life along the way.
So one of the things that has impressed me about you, we were talking prior to recording, and you said, I've had two careers in my life and I love them both.
Mhm.
You have this perspective on life that is very positive. Is that just who you've always been?
I guess I consider myself either an optimistic pessimist or a pessimistic optimist. So that people really end up thinking that I'm very positive is kind of funny. But it's always been, you just kind of go through each day. I have strong family genes, I think,
Yeah.
that we're survivors. We're going to make things work. If there's a problem, we work our way through it. And so I think it's always just been who I am and where I am, along the way.
So along the way, you live your life, you are an
Mhm.
adult. When did you
Mhm.
finally get to a diagnosis?
Well, it's interesting. I actually left the medical system in my 20s because I got very frustrated when I'd go to doctors and they'd say, you need to lose weight. And I'd say, well, here's what I do. I eat healthy. This is what I eat. This is my exercise. I used to manage a state park. So I was outside and moving around quite a bit. And they'd say, I don't know, you must be lying to me. And after people say that enough to you, you just say, all right, I'm going to live my life. The medical system is for an emergency, and kept on going. Finally, you turn 50, which was a long time ago now, and you kind of think, oh, I really better see if I can get back into the medical system. And was fortunate enough to choose a new doctor. And I chose her because her last name was the same as my grandmother's maiden name, just kind of hen picking. And it was so fortunate because she was very empathetic and very supportive. And she actually talked to me and said, we may want to look your legs, she poked my legs and she said, I think you have lymphedema, but I'm not sure, we ought to get you into compression. And I kind of went, yeah, I'm fine. It doesn't hurt. And just kind of went along.
And for 50 years, you've been,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
dealing with it.
So I really wasn't that worried or didn't think about it that much. But every year, and what I really liked about her, she took it at my pace, which tests I would do, which things I would do. So we really built a good working relationship, I think. But about, let's see, when I was 60, which was a couple of years ago now, I actually had a teeny tiny accidental cat bite on the back of my leg where the swelling is pretty severe. That
Does
got
anybody ever
infected.
have an intentional cat bite?
It was, well, she was,
I wanted that cat to bite me.
she was so dear, she was a good cat. And she really just, I wigged when she wagged, and it was just not a pretty picture. But,
Aw.
I knew within about 12 hours, I thought there is something not right about this. And my doctor had talked to me about the risk of cellulitis and, to just keep an eye out for things. So
Mhm.
I had a cellulitis diagnosis that over the counter, pills that they gave me didn't work. And I ended up in the hospital for 14 days
Oh my
on IV
goodness.
antibiotics. I have never been in the hospital overnight. I had never been to an emergency room. So this was a real wake up call. But while I was there was a physical therapist there, and she really encouraged me to seek out a certified lymphedema therapist to try to bring some of the swelling down, because the cellulitis brought on a surge of fluid. I probably gained 20 pounds of fluid during that cellulitis.
Oh
And
no.
so after the hospital stay and the infection cleared up, I actually ended up finding a certified lymphedema therapist who was an occupational therapist, because the PTs, the three PTs I found in the area were all booked for like 6 months, and I could get in with the OT in 30 days. So I went to her, and when I walked in the door, she took one look at me and did a quick assessment. She said, "Has anyone ever told you you have lipedema too?" And I'm like, "Why no? Tell me more." Had never
Yeah, it
heard of
was
it.
sort of, have you ever even lippa what?
Yeah, exactly. So it was great. She actually worked through, talking about diet, talking about exercise, trying to encourage me to get to a pool, but I work full time and there really wasn't a way to make that fit. But she got me into a reduction phase that we went through for a couple of months. And I lost about 15% of the volume in my legs, according to her calculations, and things leveled off.
So 15% of the volume after the cellulitis?
Yep. Yeah.
So you
So
started to see results and wait a minute, there's something I can do
yeah,
about this
exactly.
condition.
It became a real, and I never thought of it like this before, but before the lymphedema, but kind of became a real knowledge is power type moment for me. I couldn't read enough. I couldn't find enough about it because her knowledge was still somewhat limited to it. But it was terrific. So she got me into compression. And I had a real interesting experience when they measured me from compression, because my legs are very large. She actually measured me. The first ones that came, I couldn't get them up my legs, and I called her, and she's like, "Oh, they're supposed to be difficult, but bring them in. Let's try it out." She said, "Oh yeah, there's something wrong here." So they were joped, and the joped fitter actually came down and remeasured me. And the around your ankle cuff, it's really important and difficult to get a good measurement. And I learned they expect this in compression world sometimes, that you're going to have to be refitted. But
Mhm.
finally got me into compression on my lower legs. And the CLT was saying, well, they'll probably find something for you that you can wear up to your waist. But the fitter said, and I love this, she said, the only good compression is compression you wear. I'm not sure it would do a lot of good on your upper legs, but why don't you try something off the shelf? I've heard of these new things called BioFlect. Try them and see how they work. And so what I love the fact, because I hear and see so often on like the Facebook groups and social media about people not doing the compression because it was too hard. And it's like, you just haven't got the right one yet. And
Interesting.
we don't know to challenge if it's a custom compression that maybe it isn't measured right. We just kind of think, oh, compression's supposed to be hard to get on and move on, but there are ways to make it work. So every day I wear my lower legs, I wear my BioFlex, and kind of keep on going. And I've always had a fairly healthy diet, you know, whole grains. The only pasta would have been whole wheat pasta, brown rices on any of the, you know, the starches things. But I also figured out as I started this journey that I was starting to get rashes on my mouth and rosacea over like in my 50s as I went through perimenopause, and found out from my doc that sometimes you develop allergies later on. And she's like, well, we can send you for testing, but, you know, and I finally figured out it was vinegars and nightshades. And I eliminated those, and those two helped with reducing the non-lipedema fat. And so I started looking at my diet. I limit my carbs to about 100 grams a day, you know, so not terribly, I'm about moderation. You know, you still want to have some joy in life. You still want to have some pleasure. And for me, cooking and those sorts of things bring joy. So for me, it's kind of a modified sort of world that I go through to limit my carbs and watch my vitamins and those sorts of things that I'm intaking. But that's managed to help lose a fair bit of the, during COVID, of all things, the non-lipedema fat. So, and I think it's helped because I've been home. I haven't been out in the world, you know, so a lot of the temptations or the desires to like have the sweets or whatever. And dairy, I really limit the dairy. The dairy makes a big difference on the inflammation for me.
Did you do one of those food sensitivity tests, or were you
Yes, I
just doing
did.
trial and error?
Along the way, I became acquainted through Facebook with Cheryl Skolage.
We love her.
Well, and the funniest thing, she posted on one of the lipedema groups that she had these workout bands that she was getting rid of. Did anybody want them? And so I said, well, yeah, sure, I'd be interested, because I was using them in my PT and OT work. And she said, well, where do you live? Before we get into this, see if it's worth it for me to ship them to you. Well, it turns out I live in a town next door to where her husband's family was.
Wow.
And she was driving up to visit family. So we actually met, and it was just terrific. So I became friends with her.
The serendipity of the community.
Yep.
Is
Absolutely
amazing. And I absolutely love that. And I'm so happy that the journey led you to, did you first come out to one of our roundtables after meeting Cheryl's group, or how did that happen?
I actually had been with her sort of, you know, I kind of work as one of her helpers on her page now. And so I've known her now for probably about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, I would think. So that was before you started the roundtables.
That's right.
I think. Yeah. So that came first along the way. But you're right. It's such a small world with this group, I think.
It feels so comforting to know that you're not alone too. I think that's the thing that has meant so much to people. By the way, just so you know, there is a little girl behind my shoulder here, Shasta Viola, the Sheltie. She's 15 years old. I tried to get her out of the office before the interview, but she said, no, I want to meet Jenny. Because Jenny made you so happy when you got your note from her.
Well, I'm so glad. And I'm looking around, my cat, the cat that bit me, actually, she passed away of old age last winter, just before Christmas. So interestingly enough, the first day I was sent home from work to work from home, I sat here and thought, I don't think it's going to be a couple of weeks. I need to find a new family member. And found one of the last cats, because shelters were already shutting down and not allowing people in. But I found a cat, a wonderful cat. She's a black and white tuxedo named Mittens. And she may jump up on here at some point. But right now she's more interested in the birds out the window. So.
I think I have a photo of you with Mittens that I used on social media. Mittens has been, look, the people and the animals that share our journey with us bring us such comfort and help. And it's not just the physical, it's the emotional state of our hearts, and not being alone and having that pitter patter of little feet helps so much.
She's made such a difference. I'm so glad that she came into my life in this past year, because she's been a pleasure to have around. She's curious and smart and playful. So it's been a good thing. So you may see Mittens the cat somewhere, but I think distracted enough by the birds, the morning bird
Oh,
rounds.
that's so
So,
fun. So I can only imagine after being told by a doctor, you must be lying to me
oh,
about your
mhm,
diet and exercise,
mhm.
to
Yep,
finally be diagnosed with lipedema and to
yep,
realize that it's not about diet and
right,
exercise. It is a
yep,
disorder that no matter, it's not calories in, calories out. So
mhm, yeah,
now that you got to address some of the lymphedema through
yep,
diet and through compression, what
yep.
about the lipedema?
Well, I think my goal all along since I found out about it has really been to prevent another cellulitis infection and to prevent progression. I recognize I'm late stage. And I mean, everything that's out there, the vast majority of the information out there, a lot of it is anecdotal, and you can really get your brain wrapped up in that. Liposuction is good, liposuction is bad. This is good, that's bad. You need to debulk, you need to do this. So I really had to kind of step back and say, what do I really want to see out of life? What's my quality of life? I can still move. I use a cane because, my knees, it's taken its toll on my knees. But I can move. I can still walk. I can still get around. I've got some hypermobility. I haven't yet sought out whether I've got Ehlers-Danlos or any of those other diagnoses. I'm pretty sure I don't have any of the hard lumps of Derkums, but for me, it's about how do I prevent progression? How do I stay mobile? How do I stay independent? I am single. So those things become critical to me. Can I still live my life?
Yeah.
And I think prior to my diagnosis, I was actually at the point of thinking, geez, I really ought to start thinking about one of those lifts to go up the staircase. And as I've been able to improve my mobility, because I think one of the other places I kind of found through the Facebook is the Lipedema Fitness and Patty. It's so fortuitous to really kind of encourage you and keep you in a forward motion. And even in terms of the lymphedema, Lymphie Strong is an inspiration to me, and her monthly challenges. And it's like, you don't have to do the Zumba if it's Zumba this month, but if you can do the movement every day and, what's your goal? It really helps keep me on a movement track as well. So it's been life changing to have a diagnosis finally. Before the diagnosis, I actually had really come to recognize health at every size, that movement. There's a woman out there by the name of Reagan Chastain, I think, but she runs a blog called Dances with Fat. She's lovely. And she really taught me to stand up for myself in terms of the medical world. Instead of just accepting, because she would recount things that just, somebody would go in for a broken finger and the doctor would say, just lose weight. Instead of treating the broken finger or the sore throat, they would immediately be told, lose weight, have bariatric surgery, do this, do that. And I thought, that is horrific. And Dances with Fat really encourages you to stand up for yourself. And if that's the first mode that a medical professional takes, to really think about saying, what would you do? Do skinny people get this condition? What do you suggest for thin people first? Can we do some of those tests? Or if they say, and it really horrifies me to even on the lipedema pages when I hear of somebody whose doctor says they can't give them surgery because they're over the BMI, they don't have the equipment. Does that make us lesser people? Should we be left aside from the medical system just because we don't meet an insurance factor, which is usually what it is? So, and all of that piece of me, I think, comes through having found that whole Dances with Fat and that health at every size type of perspective on it.
These are such great recommendations. And I know for people watching, first of all, they're going to say, well, I saw that interview with Jenny Beaujean. Just like you said, I saw Patty Cornute
Yeah.
and Cheryl Skolich, and the people that I have met with lipedema are resilient and their hearts are huge. There's a lot of pain that comes from being shamed about your body. And yet I find that these people are just beautiful because of how they have addressed the pain. Instead of getting bitter, they've gotten better and encouraged the community. And so we gloriously lead to the part of your story where you got a Lympha Press.
Well, you know, and that's kind of interesting as well, because along the way, like the CLT is kind of like, well, maybe it will, maybe it won't, I'm not sure. And I said, well, what do you think? And so I took information to my doc and had looked into it. And I really kind of decided, again, I think it's kind of like the compression. If it doesn't fit right, you aren't going to do it. So the only good compression is if you use it. And I kind of, in looking at all the different options, thought, oh gosh, all those ones with all those tubes and all those Velcro, I'll never do it. And also, just from what I read about it, I thought I really kind of want to focus on the Lympha Press. So my doc was very willing to write a prescription. And the CLT passed it on to the pump representative in New England. And in his call to me, he's like, oh, your insurance won't cover that. I already know. It'll cover this one instead. You can do that one, but you're going to have to pay full price. And I thought, oh, that's just too discouraging. And because everybody was kind of on the fence as to whether it would help me, I just kind of dropped it for a while. And Cheryl said, yeah, no, you need to get a hold of Brenda. So yeah, bless your heart down there in Florida.
My other title is Lipedema Patient Advocate.
Yep.
And I really take that to heart. You know, I want to fight for the lipedema community. And, you know, it's unfortunate that you were misguided at first about what insurance would and wouldn't cover, but we have a team of experts that are willing to go to bat for lipedema patients. And we're not bypassing the rules, but we are crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So when we finally got connected, it wasn't an immediate journey, but why don't you tell me about how you got your Lympha Press and what it's doing for you?
So fortunately, you connected me eventually. I got connected to Maria, and the first time we submitted, you know, they said no. And she kept fighting and helping me through the process. And we actually did get lymphedema covered, the press covered. And it finally arrived in late February, I think. And, you know, I've been kind of solid about using it twice a day. And I definitely noticed a decrease in the pain. My legs definitely have a lighter feeling. I've not yet taken a remeasurement because I had a break. I had to have a little procedure in the hospital. And so I thought, all right, I'm not going to do this for a couple of weeks. So I just got back on track after that. So I've been back on it twice a day. I call it my blue smurf suit. But it's absolutely simple to climb in and out of, which I love about it. And, you know, it's just a part of me. And I also had to get over the psychological hurdle, if you will, of giving it twice a day, you know, and I thought it may be not forever, but this is what the doc suggests. This is what Lympha Press suggests. I really need to try to commit to that. And you think about that, in this journey, there's so much self-care we have to do every day to stay mobile. And I probably resisted it when my doc first talked about lymphedema for me, because I didn't want to try to figure out how to fit it in my life, everything that it would entail. But now that I would say I practice, I would say 2 hours and 45 minutes of self-care every day, you know, between morning routine and night routine.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, it's just part of me. And I mean, it even helps my attitude. And I think that was what, you know, you pointed out, I'm kind of positive. But it really has even helped out my attitude and my confidence, which you know, the women in my family, we're strong, we're independent, we're there. But it really has changed my confidence and my attitude. And keeping to that routine is what keeps me up there, you know? So I do it. I do the movement. I do the massage. I do the Lympha Press now every day because it makes a difference, I think. So I figure I'm going to remeasure my legs. Probably, I may have more medical procedures ahead of me, unfortunately, but they're okay. It's all going to be good. I think maybe at the end of April, I'm going to remeasure, because that will have been a solid month that I've been doing twice a day.
Well, I'm going to check back with you.
Now I know I'll have to do the measuring.
Absolutely. Because you're stuck with me. Like I said, when someone writes a genuine note of heartfelt appreciation, it touched me deeply, and you're a very special individual. I'm so glad that we are connected. I know you have other things going on today, so I just want to give you the floor and say, if there's someone out there, I mean, you had a condition your whole life, you weren't even diagnosed until age 50. And yet here you are, and you're inspiring other people with good information and your own journey. What would you say to someone watching who is just beginning, or maybe just found out that they have lipedema or lymphedema?
Well, and I think it's a couple of different things. And the lipedema diagnosis was just 2 years ago at age 60. So even at that, but I would say there are two different things that I would have going. One would be for somebody like me who's getting that late in life diagnosis, if you will. Knowledge is power. Do the reading and try not to, go for this doesn't have a quick answer. This is something that you have to figure out what works best for you. And it's not the same for every person. There is not a one size fits all solution for this. There may not even be a solution, but there is a solution to your well-being. And so I think for that, you use the people that are out there are the inspiration to help us all get through it. So ask the questions, get the information, but check it up. Go look and read the articles and things about it. Don't just take somebody's say so that this is the only path, because it's not. But the other thing I think is getting the word out, because on lipedema, it blew my mind to hear that 1 in 11 women have it. Yet in this country, it's largely unrecognized. So to kind of talk about it, I don't walk up to strangers and say, I think you have lipedema. I don't do that. But whenever somebody, there's my people. Whenever somebody comes into my life, I don't hide it. And I say, this is what I have. Here's some information. Let me know if you have any questions. And I see a path in the future where I want people diagnosed young. When there are possible solutions, when they could get that surgery that's maybe prevent progression, or to make those change in their lifestyle that's going to prevent the adipose tissues from getting solid and everything slowing down and causing further problems. I think that's important to kind of encourage those early diagnoses on the line,
So well said. And I love your point about knowledge being power, and the knowledge you have gained and that you've shared in this interview is going to empower many others. So I can't thank you enough. You promise you're going to stay in touch, right?
I promise. I know how to find you now.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I am so glad you found us. I'm so glad you found Lympha Press.
Me too.
I love your point about how it's not just one tool in your toolbox, but it's a part of your full self-care approach to life. And absolutely. I applaud you for doing that, Jenny. And thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be able to share,
Yeah, it's good to tell stories, because stories help other people with their own story. And by the way, if you know someone out there who would have a great story to share about their lymphedema or lipedema, or if you know someone who would like to try the Lympha Press, send them my way, bviola@medsupplier.com. I'm your lipedema patient advocate.
Great news.
And it would be great to work with you. And Jenny, thank you again. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.